With the latest now from inside Ukraine. Ukrainian forces are claiming what could be a major coup this morning, a strike on a Russian warship. We have images posted on social media by Ukrainian armed forces. Ukraine says the bombardment hit a Russian troop lander in a southern port controlled by Russian forces. Ukraine's military also posted an image of the vessel. Warships like it would be for an amphibious assault from the Black Sea. We also have new images from Mariupol. That woman's name is Victoria. While artillery fire thunders overhead, she tearfully tells journalists that she just buried her stepfather. Markers for makeshift graves line residential streets in Mariupol. People say it's all they can do while the battle for the city rages. Officials say at least 4,000 people are known to have been killed in the siege, but the deputy mayor says that number could be as high as 20,000. We also have images of Ukrainian resistance. Some of the images coming out of Kherson, where Ukrainians have been staging demonstrations confronting the Russian forces who captured the southern Ukrainian city in the first days of the invasion. Ukrainian officials say 300,000 people remain trapped there, running out of food and other supplies, unable to escape a Russian blockade of the city. Salima Shivji joins us now from a Polish city near the border with Ukraine. Salima, thanks so much for joining us. We heard Volodymyr Zelensky's appeal to NATO leaders, but he's also making a call for people around the world to show their support for Ukraine. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, John, really strong and emotional words from Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, basically speaking in English for a chunk of his nightly address. That's unusual for him. Usually he tends to stick to Ukrainian to rally his nation against Russian troops, but specifically speaking in English on this call because, of course, this is the one-month anniversary of the start of the war, and on the eve of that important NATO meeting. He is basically calling on the people of the West to see this as just the beginning of Russia's intentions. He is sort of framing this again as basically what Russia's doing in Ukraine could spread elsewhere, and that it is a symbol of what Russia wants to do to democracy. Now, Zelensky is saying that Russia's President Vladimir Putin really wants to show that cruelty matters and not people, but Ukraine's president wants the world to stand up and show that peace matters. Take a listen.
From this day and after then, show your standing. Come from your offices, your homes, your schools and universities. Come in the name of peace. Come with Ukrainian symbols to support Ukraine, to support freedom, to support life. Come to your squares, your streets. Make yourselves visible and heard. Say that people matter, freedom matters, peace matters, Ukraine matters.
Now this, as of course the war rages on inside Ukraine, as you heard, Ukrainian forces succeeded in a few counteroffensives across the capital and the outskirts of Kyiv, succeeding in pushing back some Russian troops who appear to be entrenched in some defensive positions around the capital. But that's, as you know, some other towns are still enduring really excruciating conditions. Mariupol, of course, the besieged city, the southern port city, still has many tens of thousands of people trapped, as well as Chernihiv. Ukrainian officials say that city, the people are being held hostage there. Basically, they've had to ration water to make sure that people have enough supplies, as that city is completely cut off after a road bridge was bombed. So a lot of desperation in many cities of Ukraine as President Zelensky is making this call on the people of the West and the people across the world to rally against the war in Ukraine.
Salima, you're at a city near the border with Ukraine. Poland has welcomed the vast majority of Ukrainian refugees. What can you tell us, the latest there on the humanitarian crisis in that country?
Yeah, that's right. I'm at a train station in Przemyśl, and you can see, there's a kitchen behind me. You see these kitchens at every single stop in a lot of towns in the southern part of Poland on the border with Ukraine. Basically, people handing out food, handing out toys and clothing to some people that are stepping off these trains, leaving Ukraine, anything that they need to make their journey onwards a little bit better. Some people staying here, but of course moving on to different cities, moving on to the capital, Warsaw. And the numbers really are staggering. I'm going to throw a bunch of numbers at you, but it's important, I think, to hear them because they are really quite astronomical. Some 3.5 million Ukrainians have left the country. Poland has received more than 2 million of them, and then 6.5 other million Ukrainians are displaced inside the country. But of course, so many of those refugees need help, need aid, and a lot of these countries are struggling under the strain of trying to help them and give them as much care as they can and help them sort of integrate into life wherever they are stopped temporarily as they flee their country. So the European Commission is actually announcing a bit more aid for those countries that are accepting Ukrainian refugees. We heard $3.5 billion in aid for countries like Poland and countries like the other surrounding countries, Hungary, Romania, who are handling an influx of refugees. And that aid is sorely needed as this help just keeps coming for the Ukrainians pouring out of their country.
Thanks for this, Salima. Salima Shivji, near Poland's border with Ukraine.